I can't believe this is actually happening.
Frogs are weird. And everything you know about frogs is so wrong. In early 1980s, a researcher picked up a dead frog from snow, rigid, pale, cold as the frozen ground it was lying on. Eyes white, no heartbeat, no breath. He turned it over in his hands, noted the condition, and set it back down. 3 months later, it walked away. Not treated, not revived, not slowly nursed back. It had been frozen solid for the entire winter, and when the temperature rose, it stood up and moved toward the nearest pond as though nothing unusual had occurred. That is not the strange part. The strange part is that this is completely routine for this animal. It does this every single year. It has been doing this for longer than our species has existed, and you had no idea. You thought you knew what a frog was. You learned it before you could read. Green, jumps, eats flies, lives near a pond. You were wrong about almost all of it. We will come back to the frozen heart. But first, the thing sitting in your garden right now has never once in its entire life done something you do every single day without thinking. Every animal you can think of has a mouth, and almost every animal uses that mouth to drink. You drink from yours. A dog laps water with its tongue. A bird tilts its head back. Even fish take water in through their mouths. Now think about a frog. Same mouth, pond right there, obviously drinks from it. I didn't say that. A frog has never taken a single sip of water in its entire life. Not once. Not as a tadpole, not as an adult. The mouth is completely disconnected from how this animal hydrates. On the underside of its belly, there is a patch of skin so thin, so permeable, that water passes directly through it into the bloodstream without any action required. Scientists call it the seat patch.
Frogs are naturally very sensitive species, and the frog species that we're working with are extremely rare.
Place a dehydrated frog on wet ground, mouth closed, throat still. In minutes, it is fully rehydrated through its belly, without effort, without swallowing, without doing anything visible at all. It does not drink, it absorbs, like a cloth pressed against a spill. You have walked past these animals your whole life and never once questioned whether they were drinking. They weren't. And that pond you keep picturing, the one every frog supposedly lives in. Most adult frogs spend the majority of their lives nowhere near it. The pond is a maternity ward, a seasonal stop. Eggs are laid there, tadpoles develop there, and then the frog leaves. Some species return once a year, some even less, and some have canceled the arrangement entirely. Several species lay their eggs directly on land, in leaf litter, in tree hollows, in the damp gaps between roots. The eggs hatch not as tadpoles, but as fully formed miniature froglets. No pond, no water, no tadpole stage at all. The transformation everyone treats as the definition of what a frog is, that slow, iconic journey from tadpole to adult, is not a rule. It is one option among several, and dozens of species have quietly abandoned it. So here is what we have so far. It does not drink. It does not need a pond. The feature everyone considers most fundamental to its identity is optional, and it has been living this way in one form or another for 250 million years. The frog was here before the Atlantic Ocean existed. It watched the dinosaurs arrive. It watched them leave. It outlasted the extinction that ended them. The one before that, and the one before that. An animal you have never once stopped to think about has survived everything this planet has produced. The question is how? And part of the answer starts in Cameroon, in 1977, with a biologist who reached into the grass and grabbed what he thought was an ordinary frog. The frog broke its own bones, not from the force of being grabbed, not by accident. The moment his hand closed around it, a row of small bones in its hind toes snapped deliberately, and the fractured tips drove outward through the skin, emerging as claws, not hardened tissue, not thickened skin, actual bone, protruding through open wounds the animal made in itself. The animal is called the hairy frog. The hair is not hair. It is a dense mat of skin filaments found only on breeding males, packed with blood vessels, thought to function as an external breathing surface so males can stay submerged longer while guarding their eggs without surfacing for air, unusual enough on its own. But the claws were something else. For 30 years, scientists assumed the mechanism worked the way claws normally work in nature: gradual, structural, developed over time. It was not until 2008 that researchers confirmed what was actually happening inside that foot. The bones break on purpose. A thread appears, a muscle contracts, the bone snaps, and the tip tears through the skin from the inside out. When the thread is gone, the muscle relaxes. The claw retracts, the wound begins to close. A weapon that only exists while the animal is bleeding. Whether those bones fully reheal between uses or remain fractured inside the toe, already primed, waiting for the next time, that is still being studied. Evolution built this, in a frog. In the animal, you step around on the pavement without breaking stride. Every animal you have ever seen gets bigger as it grows. That is not a theory. That is simply how development works. A puppy becomes a dog, a calf becomes a cow, a tadpole becomes a frog. Except one. In South America, there is a frog called Pseudus paradoxa, the paradoxical frog. Its tadpole reaches 25 centimeters in length, one of the largest tadpoles recorded anywhere on Earth, unmistakable, impossible to miss. Then it matures into an adult. The adult is 7 centimeters long. 3/4 of its body disappears as it grows up. It does not gain mass during development. It loses it. Scientists named it paradoxa because no other word fit. In the 1980s, researchers studying its skin secretions found a compound that mimicked a hormone controlling insulin production in the human body. That compound became the basis for a diabetes treatment now used by millions of people worldwide. A frog that shrinks as it matures, living in a swamp in Trinidad, quietly handed modern medicine one of its most important tools. This keeps happening with frog skin. Over 100 pharmacological compounds have been extracted from different species. Painkillers more potent than morphine, antifungal agents, antimicrobials that work on bacteria resistant to everything else, potential HIV inhibitors. That soft, damp, defenseless-looking skin, the one that seems like the worst possible surface to expose to a world full of predators and pathogens. It is one of the most chemically complex surfaces in nature, and it is right there on the outside where everything can reach it. Now go back to the researcher. Back to the frog he set down in the snow. Here is what was happening inside that body the entire time. The moment a wood frog's temperature begins approaching freezing, its liver does not slow down. It floods the entire bloodstream with glucose at concentrations that would be catastrophically lethal in any normal biological situation. Glucose levels in a freezing wood frog can reach 100 times what you would find in a healthy human. This is not food, this is antifreeze. That glucose is driven into every cell in the body. Once inside, it raises the concentration of dissolved material high enough that the water within each cell cannot crystallize. Ice crystals forming inside a cell puncture the cell wall and destroy it instantly. The glucose stops this from happening, so the water inside each cell stays liquid. The water outside the cells, between the organs, beneath the skin, inside the eyes, freezes completely solid. Heart stopped, lungs flat, brain silent. No circulation, no oxygen, no measurable sign of life by any instrument available. For weeks, sometimes months, then the temperature rises. 1 degree, 2. The ice melts from the outside in. The glucose disperses back through the bloodstream. The heart receives the signal it has been waiting for. It restarts. The frog blinks, stands, walks to the pond. No recovery time, no weakness, no visible indication that it was, by every biological definition, not alive for the past several months. It does this every year. It has done it every year for longer than our species has existed, and until this moment, you thought you knew what a frog was. In 1973, in a creek in Queensland, Australia, a researcher found something that should have permanently changed medicine. A female frog had swallowed her eggs, not eaten them, incubated them. Her stomach, which ordinarily produces acid and breaks down food the way every stomach does, had converted itself into a sealed brooding chamber. Acid production suspended, digestion paused, the eggs developed inside her, became tadpoles, became froglets. When they were ready, she opened her mouth and gave birth, the gastric brooding frog. Think about what that means for a moment. An animal that switched off stomach acid production completely, on demand, for weeks at a time, without ulceration, without damage, without any consequence to the stomach lining whatsoever, then switched it back on when it was done. Stomach ulcers affect hundreds of millions of people. Chronic acid reflux, acid-related damage to the esophagus, conditions that cause enormous suffering worldwide and that medicine has treated for decades without ever fully understanding the underlying regulation mechanism. This frog understood it, in the most literal biological sense. It ran the process on command. Scientists had 10 years with her. The last confirmed sighting of the gastric brooding frog was in 1983. Gone. Before the mechanism was mapped, before the research was complete, before anyone fully understood what was leaving until it had already gone. The answer she carried died with her. 1/3 of all frog species on Earth are currently threatened with extinction. Many have never been studied. Some have never been named. Every one of them is carrying chemistry developed across 250 million years, through 5 mass extinctions, through ice ages, continental collisions, and every catastrophe this planet has ever managed to produce. We know what frog skin has already given us: diabetes treatments, painkiller blueprints, antifungals. We know about the frozen heart and the self-breaking bones and the stomach that became a womb. We do not know what the ones we are losing we're still carrying. The wood frog defeated death on a seasonal schedule and does it again every spring. The hairy frog armed itself with its own skeleton. The paradoxical frog shrank its way into medical history. The gastric brooding frog held an answer to human suffering inside her body and took it with her when she left. These are frogs. The animal in the picture book. The one you step around without looking. The one you have never once felt the need to understand. You were not wrong to recognize it. You were wrong to think that was enough. If this changed how you see an animal you thought you already knew, like this video, it reaches more people than you would think. And if you want the next one, subscribe, because the next animal on this list makes the frog look straightforward. You have been warned.